All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Thank you. Well, today I'm just so honored. We have just an amazing guest who I've had the honor and the pleasure of just making his acquaintance. Um, I know you're gonna love him. I know you're gonna enjoy what he has to say, and I'm looking forward to collaborating with him in the future. And this is none other than Mr. Dan Cuzzo. Welcome. Hey, how are you, Dan? How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for taking the time out your evening, to be with
Definitely.
us. Yeah, so I wanted to, I got a chance to meet with you, as a fellow writer out there on Medium, and immediately, I just took so much interest in what you're about and what you've been saying and what you're doing, and we've got a chance to chat a little bit, but I'm just looking forward to learning a little bit more, and
hmm
so you do so many different things, and I just want to kind of start with just the one top thing in the list that I learned about you was your art. Can you kind of tell us about what you've been doing as far as art, as far as drawing, and maybe where that came about?
yes. I'm not a professional artist by any means. I literally took art studio art in high school, but I feel that any whether it's art, drawing, whether it's photography or writing, as someone who's been spiritual since I was 16, I find spirituality uh, it enters my drawing, it enters my photography, it enters my writing. So when I draw, I noticed when I was younger, one of my spiritual abilities is seeing into the future.
Wow.
So I would clear my mind and I would draw a picture and I wouldn't know what I was drawing. And this isn't foolproof, but by the end of it, I'd either have a piece of garbage that would make no sense, or if I got into the zone, I would have a picture that I would look at and I would just feel the energy from it and I would see. I've got the Italian hands going, but I would see something that was going to happen or I would get a message. And so some of my art, though it's not like amazing to look at, if you look at it, there's a lot of symbolism within it. And also I've always been very good with colors and mixing colors. So those are my strong points. So when I try to create, like my friend that is an artist, like he says, like, wow, like the only part you're like more impressive than I am is by mixing color and by making something so vibrant. And but eventually, like I did for the cover of my writing, I had to have somebody hire somebody because my technical skills aren't up to snuff. So I guess the
Okay.
important part is the color and mixing color and bringing spirituality into it, which I feel like everybody does to a certain extent, but I just feel like I've kind of in all of my art, I've gotten very good at imbuing spirituality in what I do. And they say that about cooking too, is that you can put spirituality into cooking, which I also do, which is kind of neat. So
Oh, it affects the flavor, I bet, then, right?
yeah, the example everybody give is like mom's cooking tastes the best because mom loves you the most. So she
Ah,
puts love, yeah, whether she's spiritual or not, she puts love into her cooking, so it tastes better.
wow, I like that. I like that. I like that. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So jumping on to the next thing, how we cross paths was through writing,
Yeah.
and you got some awesome pieces there. I just read some more this morning. So can you maybe tell us about your writing, maybe how it started, kind of, and I know it's got the spiritual context to it, so I'm looking forward to hearing what's going on in the writing in your world.
Well, that's interesting because I recently read a follower and friend on Medium who said they published an old poem from when they were a teenager and it was similar to how they wrote now. And again, there were some differences, but like I feel like as I became more spiritual, there's been so many more dimensions to how I've been creating. And especially like when you go from being depressed to spiritual awakening to embracing being a star seed to all these different experiences, it gets a little nuts. Um,
Yeah.
so bringing it all together, because even as I'm saying this, it sounds crazy. Um, I started when I was a teenager. A lot of poets, they write to deal with depression. This is just I've yet to meet a poet who hasn't struggled with depression. I mean some less, some more, but there was actually a study in my English class in college. It was my secondary writing class. They were doing a study to test whether there was a genetic predisposition for depression in the students that had gotten to the second level writing creative writing class because they wanted to see the correlation. So there are other people that have also seen that. So again, the depression is exciting and boring at the same time. It's also just something you don't want to talk about all the time. But I feel like I should turn the tables over because I'm getting a little off kilter. Feel free to redirect me because I only got halfway through the story, but
No, no,
anything that seemed interesting I could expand upon if that's okay.
no. Well, yeah, but one of the cool things I caught that you said, which I think is awesome, is that you said that pretty much all poets, and you said are have some level of depression, and when you said that, I think about I go back to artists too. You know, I think Van Gogh, and we can probably research some artists tonight, which I'm gonna do, and several writers. I think Edgar Allan Poe, if I'm not mistaken. It's a lot of them. You're right. When we go back, a lot of them has either some kind of depression or something going on in their mind that they were challenged with or struggling with. But somehow through that we have all of this dynamic and just timeless art. So maybe you can maybe talk a little bit about that, like how um depression can correlate with writing, and how writing maybe is you think writing is a solution to it or just a channel for it. How do you think they correlate in your opinion?
Thank you for the redirection. I feel a lot better now about it. Now that I've heard you said it, I think it does connect with being unique. Spirituality is one way to be unique. There are a thousand other ways to be unique. But I feel like when we break from the status quo, we have to find our own way. And we do it often through creativity because every break we make from the norm is creative. And at every point, we have a choice to take the established path, which creates less stress, less burdens on the body and the mind, usually, unless we're so in touch with ourselves that we're actually hurting ourselves. So it's just this balance. Like, so we make a choice to make it to be unique. We get crap for it, and then we have to internalize that, and we say, do we heal? Do we conform? Do we deny who we are, or do we keep moving forward? So like, I guess along that path, we just keep doing that role check. Like, do we make the choice to be unique again? Do we make the choice to conform again? And I guess at a certain point, like when you talk about Van Gogh and his ear, like some of the artists that like take that balance to the end, like they end up losing the battle because the more you often disagree from society, you're either celebrated or criticized, and the balance is always in the mix. And it's not always like whether you're talented, like Van Gogh was talented, and nobody would deny that. It's just public perception. Like whether the media is in favor of you or not, whether the people in power are in favor of you or aren't. So every time we disagree, I feel like there's a chance we could get depressed if we can't deal with the ramifications of being different.
Wow. 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 I can't even add any more to that. You summed it up and you just hit so many chords, man, because wow. I bet that's what most people who either want to admit or don't really know that that's what they're feeling. Like you said, is this dance where if we're in touch with ourselves and we want to get away, not even get away, we just want to be true to ourselves. Like you said, it's a punishment. But if you're in touch with yourself, you deal with the pain of knowing deep down that you're denying yourself. And that could likely be, I personally, I'm just going to just say it. I think as I begin to start digging deeper on this, I'm thinking that's one of the core causes of depression, where there's been these established or suggested roles that they try to fit people in. And if you don't, you get punished. But spiritual is who we are at the core, regardless of what people believe religion wise. And that, I know that it is, it's something else. And I think a lot of those conflicts we have mentally are caused by that. You got somebody telling you to fit, a square peg in this round hole, and then just, it's painful, but we try to do it to a certain degree. And wow, once again, thank you for that. That was beautiful. Wow.
I'd like to bring up one movie that I saw called Salieri when I was in I think middle school, but I remembered it to this day. It was about Mozart, and I guess his competitor at the time, I think his name was Salieri. And Salieri was someone who was more popular than Mozart at the time, but he followed the established traditions, and he always envied Mozart, who was suffering, struggling because he diverged from what they expected. And sometimes, and there was this one, I think it was an opera that he put forth, and I think that whoever the nobility that was watching like fell asleep or something, or I think he yawned or something, and like that's like a big no if you make a. So when I was watching it, I just saw a lot of myself in that. Like I'm that crazy guy that's trying to create, and like the people who like some of the people, not all of them, but like who are established like Salieri and get all the fame, or like looking at some of them look at me, they're like, wow, like I wish I could be that free. But I'm looking at them and I'm just like, well, you have an audience. And like a lot of these people that like, go nuts on creativity, like they don't get seen until later. And it's just like, well, okay, well, like I guess I should just enjoy the fact that somebody sees something in me, even though sometimes it's like mum's the word. Like a
Mm.
lot of my followers, and again, it's wonderful that I have followers, but like I have people that only follow me in certain places, and I don't know who they are, and I'm perfectly okay with that. It's just like for someone who is on Long Island, who doesn't have many local friends, and who doesn't have any real contact, it's like, and as a star seed, like we're all scattered around, like we're all supporting each other, we're all kind of secluded dealing with our own stuff. Like I'm glad I could help and inspire people, but sometimes I just feel like I even had someone tell me once, like again, someone on Instagram who I didn't know their name, it was a username, that you're appreciated more than you know. And I said, I was just thinking in my head, like,
Wow.
it's good to know, but I've heard that a few times and I just get so confused. I keep trying, I keep doing things, and it just, it's kind of confusing sometimes. So I'm sorry I got off tangent. I just kind of
No, no,
went
wow.
with
I
it.
got I got to give you applause. Like you said, that's wow. I think, yeah. What you just said, I think that was a message to you. You know how you say you going at it and going at it, and you're trying to, you're looking for these confirmations, but I think they come like that from where you least expect it, by just a random message saying what was it, you love, you're appreciated more than you know. And I think
Yeah.
that's what it is, because we, a lot of times, whether we believe it or admit it or not, we do look for, um, I think a lot of us do sometimes look for the reciprocation in certain areas, right? Or we may look to for something to grow in the area where we're planting the seed at. But a lot of times it's that confirmation will come from something else, just to remind us to keep going. Like you're doing what you need to do. Just keep going. And I've had those weird confirmations to come to me, and I didn't know what they were until years later. Um, but I do know that they'll come from people who've never spoken to you, people you don't know. Um, I've seen it come in different ways, and I'm like, wow, that's what that was. That was that confirmation, that message, that hint that I was needing, so that I wouldn't give up, you know. So no, that's awesome, man. Wow. So next, I want to see. This is what I'm really also really excited to learn more about is your spiritual photography. Um, I, I obviously know that it's a deep subject, so please, if you can, I'd love to come back and just get a chance to do an entire segment just on spiritual photography, where we can, pull up some slides of, and maybe you can talk us through them. But if you can maybe give us, maybe a little bit of how you started with spiritual photography, and maybe kind of give us your presentation of it to maybe get us
Mm.
ready for a fuller presentation on it.
Definitely. This is actually a fun part because it was all done in fun. Like I've always enjoyed taking sunset photos and I've enjoyed taking photos of important moments, usually in nature. But ultimately, this happened through my own enjoyment. Like I wasn't doing this for money, I wasn't doing this for pleasure. I was just enjoying social media with my friends, and I also like to take photos for my medium because I don't want to number one have to pay for photos, and I know there's a lot of photos for free, but I also want my photos to be authentic and a part of my life, and especially as a confessional poet, like I want the photos to have meaning to me because it's the poem, it's what is it, the poetry of the eye. So it's just like I did this, I did that, and then here's a photo of someone else. It's like, okay, well, so I'm going to move my camera a little bit and get a little bit of my third eye in the photo. Let's
Okay.
see. Oh, where are we? Oh, it's green. Look at that. If I really want to say something, it'll turn blue. Oh, now it's by my third eye. And
Right
it could
there.
also take on a secondary color. But again, I'm using a light inside. The sun is actually a lot stronger. Like as we strengthen our spiritual photography, it gets easier to do it and to create a spiritual light inside. But
Okay.
normally it starts with either the moon or the sun.
Okay.
And oh, I'm getting onto my see the story started in social media, but I guess I'll focus on my spiritual photography at first because I already started on it.
Sure.
In addition to the eye, so we have the eye, which is one of the chakra colors. So we have either, green, yellow, basically all the colors of the rainbow. Um, I tend to be green and blue, so that's the voice and the heart. However, everyone has a native color. So it's interesting because this isn't exclusive to spiritual people necessarily. It's just anybody who embraces like any level of like being one with themselves, their spirit, who they are. Um, so I'm trying to think. Right now, I'm seeing green in your eyes.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
thinking, I'm seriously, no, the whole time I've seen green in your eyes. So I'm thinking if you took a spirit photo, like I'm thinking you'd probably get the green first. But it's interesting because I'm going to go back to social media now because this is where I noticed it because I was in a lot of spiritual groups and all of a sudden, like, I noticed it first with my photos and I wanted to explore it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I want to learn more. Actually, someone else learned about it first. My uncle said, is this the infamous green flash? And I'm like, okay, first of all, it's infamous. Like, what is this? I've never heard of it
Yeah.
before. It is like, I've been look and when I said that, I'm like, I just thought the sun's been more photogenic lately. That was lately.
Right.
That was my so he looked at my response like I thought the sun looked more photogenic lately, and he said, I've been trying to capture the green flash for 12 years. I said, oh, so apparently this is a phenomenon that people capture, and I guess the green has a certain notoriety. I'm not sure why. Um, I do know that there are some famous spiritualists that do have the green like natively, like in their photos, like when they do their selfies, their Instagrams, you'll see the green in the background, like if they're in the sunlight.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily think it matters. I mean, the way the chakras work, you have red at the bottom and you have, purple towards the top and green is in the heart. So I don't know if the higher chakras are more impressive or something or not.
Mhm.
Um, but Sorry, I'm going to turn it over. You probably have a ton of questions, so feel free to redirect me here because I'm getting
Yeah,
into social media now. So you probably have some questions here.
yeah. Because well, first of all, I'm just it's awesome that so you were already you were already continuing your development. You were in these groups, right? So wow, what's amazing is I've heard of like the I guess spiritual photo. This I think it's another name for them, right? So another name of if you go somewhere and they take it, I forgot what it was. I remember hearing about it. It's a name that they'll take a picture and show you your auras. Is that similar?
Yeah,
Is that or
I
different?
think so.
Okay.
Um, it's interesting. I'll answer that question because that's a good question. My experience is 1 year. There are older people who I know I've heard stories of them that have taken them for decades.
Hmm.
So my experience is just the study over the course of maybe a little over the year.
Hmm.
And going back, I could look at my old photos and see that my energy created rainbows, or that my energy actually accumulated when I didn't realize it, but it was another spiritual person taking the photo. So it's interactive, which is neat.
Okay.
But getting back to aura photography, we have an aura, and that's a specific color. Um, I'm pretty sure my aura is blue.
Okay.
We all have a third eye,
Yeah.
and maybe that's why we have a primary and secondary color. So I'm blue and green. Um, in addition, there's other things that go on with our aura. In my spiritual photography, I have all these red designs, and I see, sometimes it's a cross, sometimes it's a pattern. Recently, it looked like an angelic design. I didn't show you that. That was yesterday's. Today's it was the pattern that I showed you, which was pretty unique. And in addition, our third eye, which again is about vision. So you have the aura, you have the third eye, but the third eye can actually transform into other things other than an eye. And that's what I've been
Wow.
discovering recently. And
Wow.
it's kind of embarrassing because in one of the three photos I sent you, it literally turned into a phallus. And I'm just like, I wonder if he notices that. Is he going to zoom in and see that just like hiding there? And I'm like, oh crap,
Uh,
this is the second time now. It was just like,
wow. That's hilarious.
but basically, my photo shoot, if you zoom in, now that my third eye is actually changing, because sometimes I have a green and a blue third eye into different things. When I look through, because I take about like, if I'm really enjoying myself, because as the sun's going down, it changes, it reflects, there's refraction through the light, and that's how you get like all these different images. You could also do it on a pool of water, or you could just do it on the air, like, because there's moisture in the air too, you get something different. But getting back to how it changes, it creates symbols. So yesterday, my third eye literally, my third eye turned into a phone, and
Oh,
that was the
okay.
first two. Oh, sorry, continue. What
Like,
were you say
like
something?
I was gonna say, like you said, like a phone.
A cell phone.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is a first, but what was I doing yesterday? I was encouraging my friend who struggles with alcoholism, who I've been talking to over several years, who I've gotten close to, in order to take a supplement which has helped another one of my friends who struggled with alcoholism and who had helped her get over it. And I was just so happy that my interaction with somebody that, again, someone I didn't know his name, his real name, but I felt close to. We're both spiritual. We both interact, and I was just so happy that like I finally made a plug and a connection with him that he understood. Like, I've been taking this for a year. He knows it has helped me because um I've told him about how it helps me purify my body, and when we purify our body, minds, and spirits, we could actually take better spiritual photos. So like, if hypothetically anybody wants to try to take a spiritual photo, if they like meditation, if they take a shower, if they're feeling really good and they get into a light source and they take a photo, it's more likely that something will come out of it.
Oh, okay. So it's also based on like our kind of what you were saying, based on our mood, certain shades may show. So like if I'm like in a bad mood and I go take a picture, I'm likely to get something totally different, if anything.
Embarrassingly.
Okay. Wow, that's
I'm sorry.
cool.
I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you because I want to build on this.
Uh-huh.
I don't usually produce red,
Uh-huh.
but the times I produce red are very distinct because I'm acting out of character.
Oh.
My friend who struggles with alcoholism, his native color is red. But as he got to know me, he developed green, which is neat. You get like a secondary color. So we joked he's like at Christmas, he's got red and green. So,
Oh, nice.
but orange is another one, which is a telling color. It's the sacral chakra, which governs sexuality. So, like
Uh-huh.
the times that as a 32-year-old virgin, which again, I don't advertise this like crazy, but because I answer relationship questions on Quora, I
Uh-huh.
have to use that as a caveat. It's like, okay, I could help you with everything except the bed stuff,
Right.
the relationship stuff I got.
Yeah.
Um, but part of my healing journey, which is also in one of my Medium posts, is about how in my previous rainbows, there's a certain generation of star seeds and healers and spiritual people that are called the rainbow children. And I remember Alexander Quinn telling me that I was in that generation that's basically about helping the young and the old connect and being a bridge to help raise the children that are supposed to be very spiritual who are growing up. And my goal was to create the rainbow. That was like about 6 months ago because I had experienced different colors, and but my rainbows were always missing colors.
Mhm.
So like over time, I was with my friend, I was studying. I'm like, and Chopper's like, my friend that I talk about, he
Uh-huh.
says, sorry, I'm going to use a different name, even though it's a pseudonym. I'm just going to use a different name.
Sure.
Um, he's saying you're missing this color, you're missing that color, and okay, I know I got to end on the spiritual photography soon, but he teased me because one of his friends took a photo, a spiritual photo. Again, people have different interest in drugs. I've never been interested in. I was on a lot of Western medications, which are, as we're finding, just as bad sometimes.
Mhm.
Some of them, but his friend on acid took a photo, and their spiritual eye was a rainbow. I was like,
Oh,
you know what? My goal is to create a natural rainbow without any inducement, like any
right.
drugs or anything. So like for 4 months, I was like sending the guy photos. I'm like, is this it? He's like, no, you're missing this color, you're missing that color. I'm like, well, you know what? So like during my healing journey, my energy photography was almost like a check, like how am I doing? And like sometimes I take a photo and it looks so ugly. Like I was told, I'm like, because some spiritual people can actually read the energy that they see, and I'm learning to do it too. So like I was exhausted, tired, I felt like crap, and I was like, and I said, well, I would like a reading. Like, does anyone see anything in this photo? And they said, your spiritual eye basically looks like a gobstopper because like it was so segregated and it looks ridiculous. I was just like, you know what? Like, this is how
Oh,
I'm feeling right now.
oh, that's
So that was
awesome.
That was a long tangent, and I apologize, but I hope at least it was entertaining.
No, it's awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey,
Wow. No, no, it's great because it just prepares us, helps understand that this is a lengthy subject. And like you say, you've been studying it for a while and still going. So it's obviously something we couldn't cover in this, bit of time. But I just wanted to, hear more about it to kind of prepare even more questions. And maybe as I even start looking deeper on this, because the things you're hitting on are things that I've kind of over maybe the last 15 years kind of touched on the surface. You come across these same things as you start studying spirituality, and I started studying Eastern, Western, and trying to understand. And you keep coming across the same things: chakras, meditation, out of body experiences, spirituality. That you keep coming across those same paths, and so I have all that book information and then my own experiences, but it's very few people that I've got a chance to hear their experiences. So it's just awesome what you're saying because it's helping me go back to some of those books and readings, which I'm gonna put out tonight, and to have someone else to talk with it about because, like you say, it's one of these things that you can't openly talk to everyone about because you just can't. Unfortunately, maybe one day, or maybe like you were doing, which was great. You actually were in groups, and that may be something that I may want to look at maybe outside of that little weird group dynamics you talked about in the beginning, but maybe I could, we can do something like that. But I'm glad to at least have you, one person, a little at a
Thank you.
time.
I do want to bring up one thing.
Yeah.
I haven't seen my psychologist in a month or so.
Uh-huh.
He moved to Florida, and I wanted to see how I do on my own for a while. And so far, so good. I
Okay.
just like, I haven't been depressed for over a year now, and I wanted to see how I would
Wow.
do and how I'd stabilize. And the new friends that I would meet and interact with, I felt kind of bad because like we're getting to the point where we are almost talking as friends when we talked, but I was paying him, and I was just like,
Uh,
the relationship was getting to where I was giving him advice and he was giving me advice. So it's just I needed to take a break and rethink the dynamic. But the point is that he's not necessarily spiritual, but he was able to take spiritual photos after interacting with me. And he was
oh,
able, yeah. So, and this has happened multiple times. I was speaking with another woman, a Long Islander, who, after speaking with me, she came back and she said, after talking with you, I took a photo of the moon. Is this a third eye photo? And it was a green one. And
wow.
so it's not just like the chosen few, like the chosen few, if there are a chosen few, that's where like those red designs come in, all that crazy stuff. I've seen that with other people too. And like those people I've met have been like really into spirituality. And it's like,
Hmm.
but the spirit eye, I feel like anybody could develop because I've seen multiple colors on people that aren't necessarily super spiritual. So it's entirely possible. And some
Yeah.
spiritual people actually find it annoying. They're like, yeah, I'm trying to take a good photo, and this little dot pops up, and they don't realize the potential that like that dot can change into a design that reflects how you're feeling and thinking. And yes, it's annoying if it pops up in a weird part of the photo, but like if you know it's there, you can account for it, which is really neat. So
Wow. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. Wow. Wow. So I want to move along because I definitely
thank
want
you.
to I want to respect your time, and I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
us getting together. It's so many questions that I'm making note of here. And I know everyone that's viewing this is gonna look forward to hearing more from you. Um, but if you can talk a little bit, as much as you can. I know you mentioned number one. Let me get an applause for that. You said like haven't experienced any depression over the last year. That's wow. I'm just I'm just so super happy for you, and I know that there's more um to that you can that you've gained, in which other people can learn from, because there's people that are just struggling. They don't have a clue. They may not have had, the resources to have someone to go and talk to. So if maybe you can you shared a little bit about some of the people that you were able to turn around and help with this, and maybe you can touch on that maybe a little bit if you want to share a few sentences about that.
it's interesting because my psychologist asked me that too, and he was literally witness to it, and he still asked me the question because more and more people are becoming depressed, and what modern medicine says is there's no way out. And I never saw it that way. Um, and it's funny too, because there were even spiritual people that I actually got mad at and I didn't get popular for, who are very popular, who basically said, like, they talked about how there's no way out of depression and there's all these different things. And I just answered him, there is a way out. We can introduce spiritual baubles to entertain people, but that's not necessarily a way out. At least that's my opinion. I mean, this guy's very popular. I'm not going to use his name, but it was recommended that I join his group, and I left very quickly. Um,
Okay.
because certain people, they get famous, they get popular for telling people that they're wonderful.
Okay.
But yes, everyone is wonderful, but being Barney the dinosaur for everybody is not going to save us. And I'm sorry, I'm being a mega jerk right now,
No, no,
but
you're being honest.
what I'm going to say is that one of the things I love to see floating around the internet, back when I was on Facebook and social media, or more social media, It's called light worker because it's work.
Okay.
A lot of yeah, a lot of us want to be love and light all the time, but they don't realize that you got to do the work. So
Okay.
like there was a point in my journey when there was a split between the people who do their shadow work and who just want to be in their bubble of love and light. But I'm jumping the gun here because this was before my spiritual journey. How did I exit depression at the very beginning?
Yeah.
Um, I always felt like I was a freak. I felt like I was an alien. I felt like I was disregarded at every turn. It was very frustrating. And at the end of the day, I had no reason to be alive other than the fact that I didn't want to hurt my parents by killing myself. And this is something that I've answered on Quora. This is something that I've told people. This is something that I've accepted.
Okay.
My parents don't know that. They think they're the big heroes that saved my life, and they are. They supported me. I thank them. I really do. But I stayed alive for them, and I don't know if they realize that. Like, and again, it's not something that I advertise. It's not something that you want to tell your parents. It's not something that you want to hurt them for.
Right.
But there was a long period where I couldn't even feel love in my heart. And someone would say, I love you. And as a pathologically almost honest person, like the only people that I would lie to and say that I would love you back was my parents. You know, nobody else got that luxury. Anybody else, I would just say something nice. I wouldn't say I love you back because those are the only people I would hurt more by not saying I love you back. Anybody else, you know, is a different story. So again, that's a little bit on depression, but the reason I got out of it was I realized number one, there was a reason I existed. And throughout all of this, one of the reasons in the back of my mind why I never killed myself was what was it telling me to say? Oh, no, didn't tell me to say anything.
I saw blue.
Is it? Okay, well, if you see something that's great, I didn't see it. It told me there was something behind me. Um, that was just the voice in my head saying that. My apologies.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, I
so
apologize.
briefly about voices is the reason I ended up on 24 medications is because when I went to see a psychiatrist and he said, do you hear voices? I said yes. And immediately he put me on an antipsychotic, which grew and grew and grew, which had side effects, which put me on more medications. So like antidepressants, antipsychotics built into all these other side effects till I was on 24 medications. It was ridiculous. So again, that's a side story. But getting back to getting out of depression is that one of the reasons I always wanted to stay alive was I knew there was a reason I existed. I just felt like if there were, or even if I did doubted it, I felt like there was a reason I existed, and I wanted to find out at least before I ended it. And then that was the story that. Um, but again, I was 30 years old, and I still hadn't found that reason. I was just like, okay, well, I was healing, but again, my motivation was low. I'm just like, okay, well, here's the progress. I'm down, you know, over the course of, you know, from 24 to 30, I was down a lot of medications to the point where I was down on my last 3 or 4 medications, which were the antidepressants.
Mhm.
So I was back to the place where like I started basically. They put me on antidepressants, which put me on more medications, and I was just staring at those antidepressants, which are really hard to get off. And I've answered that question on Quora a few times. How do you get off antidepressants? And you know, that's a whole nother story. But when I realized, you know, through the internet and through finding out about star seeds and spirituality, that number one, the ascension was real. You know, that was something I discovered. That
Okay.
that the world is ascending. That Gaia has this plan, and that there are other spiritual people out there that are trying to improve themselves. All that put together, like, you know, it's in my second poem on Medium. I said I was in the middle of saving the world in a video game, and I put it down halfway through because I realized that I could help, you know, save the world in reality, and that was my answer. It was a response.
I like that. No, you just painted a perfect picture. It's like, wow, because what you just said, oh wow, it just connected on just a couple other levels. When you what you just said was so profound in the fact that it is a message to what's going on now. You just said it, like my kids in other room video games, and I get it. That's part of every war for, the stuff that they do. But you're right. How many of the kids or just people in general, or even us, in that moment, you realize like, yeah, I'm saving the world in this game, but there's some real life people that I can help and bring value out of myself too. That's wow. That's just awesome, man. That wow. Thank you, thank you,
So,
thank you for sharing that, man.
oh, I appreciate it. So to just, I know we gotta finish the answer here, but to continue how I got out of depression is that first is the realization, and obviously you stop something that you've done for several hours a day habitually, almost like an addiction. I mean, I'd say as times I was probably video game addicted, not incredibly, but I spent a lot of time doing it. And then all of a sudden you start focusing on things that scare the crap out of you, like healing faster than you're ready for or feel ready for.
Mhm.
So like, my poems, this was December and November of 2020, they get kind of crazy. Like some of my, especially my poems from November, when I decided to go off meds, like the middle of December, I did it in coordination with my alternative medicine doctor and with supplements and natural healing and
Yeah.
all these spiritual practices that I could talk about.
Mhm.
But getting back to the point, which I've largely lost, I'm just going to say one thing is that there is a way out. It's through facing our darkness and loving ourselves through it. It's called Dark Night of the Soul. And the biggest thing to remember is that you would ask me about the people that I've helped. And I had mentioned that it would be nice to know the people that I've helped. But they say this in a lot of spiritual communities is that healing ourselves, even if we're literally in a bubble or in the woods, it still affects the world. It still affects other people. It affects everybody who's connected to us because whether we're isolated somewhere, we're still in other people's energies, in our relatives' energies, whether we like them or not. We have a genealogy, we have a history, past, present, future coincide, that everything is related. So at the end of the day, as I healed, I felt like the very fact that other people would look at me and see me healing and say, I want that, see me enjoying life and say, I want that. There are the other people that see you healing and say, I don't like that he's healing, and they beat on you, which does happen, and then they abuse you, which is another reaction you have, people can have. This jealousy, and but a lot of people are inspired as well, and like you just start to feel it. Like a lot of times just being myself, my authentic self, doesn't help everyone. Like there's a long list of toes that I've stepped on, and some of them were entirely my fault, and I've tried to learn from them. And but even that, like you don't have to be involved with the person to forgive them, to forgive yourself. And just doing that act of forgiveness, the next time you see them, the energy isn't as tight and heightened, and you don't hate each other as much because something happened between you where you let it go.
Mhm.
And even if they held on, they're holding most of the weight of holding on because you're not holding it up with them. They're just like, well, I'm holding on to my grudge. It's like, well, I let go. It's just like, well, yeah, why do I want to hold on to it myself? He doesn't even care anymore. It's just like he's forgiven me. So energetically, like the act of healing, like a lot of us feel alone and isolated, as I do, but the act of healing itself helps us. And I guess along the path, those are the lessons I've learned. So getting back to when my psychologist said, how do you heal from depression? I feel like a lot of us have gotten so far out of touch with our authentic selves that now we're embracing it again. And those of us that have been in touch with our authentic selves have absorbed so much hate and negativity a lot of times, for be it from ourselves, from other people, from our interactions, negative, positive, from the interaction of someone who's trying to be more authentic and not, with societal values, that everybody, whether you're on the unique side or not, we both have so much to deal with. It doesn't matter anymore. We're both going to come together and hopefully, exchange hands, because in my mind, I have all these voices of these people in my past that are like, okay, especially some that have ridiculous encounters that I'm embarrassed about, like something that I said about somebody, and they're like, "Hey, you called me." Oh my God, am I going to say this? There's this one woman in writing class that I called a one-trick pony, and I didn't say it to her, but I told it to my writing instructor, and she might have found out. And
Yeah.
like she's saying it in my head, and she's like, "Well, I've learned a few more tricks," and I'm like, "Well, I'm sure you have, but like, I'm just like, am I going to meet this person again?" And sometimes you hear a voice in your head as things goes along. Like I said, they're good voices, not,
Yeah.
not usually bad voices. The
Right.
whole spectrum. I've heard voices in my head, and then I've met somebody, someone I don't even know. I'm like, oh, well, this is the person I'm supposed to meet today.
Okay.
Is this? I've met good friends that way. So like during our healing journey, like you talk about signs, about being connected. Like everybody starts at a different space, but with the elevation of the earth, like the time for healing is now, and we can. It's scary as heck for someone who's starting at like close to zero and trying to get to 100 or trying to improve, but like we can really improve very quickly, and the support is there. Like if you just stand on the earth, the soil, the grass in nature barefoot, like I should do more often, or go in nature. Everyone tells you nature is your best support. So really, like if you're in an urban dwelling, like I feel like some people say they love the city, but like I feel like it really helps, like even if you just have a potted plant that you love, like or watch a documentary or something, it really helps right now because Mother Nature is helping us a lot right now.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. Wow. Wow. I'm looking definitely everything you're saying, man. I know that everyone that's watching this, as long as myself, is looking forward to hearing more. We're gonna plug it where we can hear your writings, because just some of the things, like you said, people want to know. They want to know what worked for you. And I got a couple of tidbits that that you shared um, about coming out of depression. But obviously, as you said, it's a journey, so I know it's more to that story. And but you did leave us a couple of tips, which are valuable. Like you said, getting into nature. But if we can't, something as simple as having a plant uh, in your home, some kind of connection to nature. So I think that that's awesome. Wow. So thank you for that. So as we wrap up here,
Yeah,
I'm gonna make sure that when we post this, of course, I'm gonna have all the links, that you want to share to any of your writings, the medium, of course, any of your art, any of your links you want to share. Let me know. I'll make sure that these are posted. But as we wrap
sure.
up, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's just Medium and Quora right now. I haven't found a place to host my photos. I tried one place, and some of them they don't like the spiritual photos, so I really am I'm lost as to where to post them. And that's, if you remember, we talked about possibly
Yeah.
hosting my own site, which I don't know if that is the best option. Sometimes I don't know. Like sometimes I find all these roadblocks and I get a little confused. So it's really just Quora and Medium right now.
No, no, that's awesome. Those are excellent platforms. And once we offline here, I'll definitely um talk to you and just share really quick what I've been able to do. I'm not getting paid for the site, so I'm not gonna give them free advertisement. So I'll say it offline. But I do use one of the services, which is really cool, for just building websites and stuff. So I'll share that with you, because we definitely want to you should display your art. But to wrap up, can you maybe quickly share maybe some of your current projects, or some of the things you're looking forward to doing that we can look out for?
Yes. I can't write Wannabe Dragon. That was an incompleted series. My next series would be another song, but I can't publish it until October because of the
Uh,
contract.
okay.
I I made it specifically so that I could write poetry. I got a the contract. It actually took me 2 months for the contract to tell me like, okay, we won't hold your poetry hostage or whatever. So
Okay.
that's why I mainly write poetry. So that's Medium.
Okay.
I write advice on Quora, which is nice. I do have a subscription there. Nobody's subscribed yet. You could ask me literally anything there, and I could answer in any form. I recently offered to do tarot readings for people. I
Nice.
mainly just learn for fun, which is good. So this Quora, which again I'm toying with because again, but Medium has been great, and I could write anything upon request. That'd be fine. Some of my fun writings have been upon request. One of them was a relationship article about nice guys, which was interesting. It got some I forget what it's called. So getting back on point though, anything else that I'm writing,
Uh-huh.
I guess I'm open. I mean, I'd like to do something with spiritual photography, but if anybody has any ideas, let me know. I think that's where I'm going to leave off because, I'm looking for a job. I'm trying to find work, and once I do that, I'm just going to do everything else on the side. So
Yeah.
yeah, getting an income is important, and then I could, start to establish myself, I guess.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. So once again, thanks again, Dan. I'm looking forward to staying in contact with you. Thanks for sharing some time with us, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, Dan Cuzzo. Yes, yes. Yes, he is awesome. So please tune in. Dan's going to be back to see us sometime soon. Please go ahead and check out all of his media that he shared in his links, and we'll share some links also. But thanks a lot, and we'll be seeing you soon. Bye now.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks.